All right, welcome to the Pitch Stack episode 10. We did it, Matt. We're in double digits. We did it. So obviously Matt's here. Matt, how are you today?
Great.
I'm doing okay. I've had a rough week in the world of sports.
You sound like you're feeling better.
I am. I defeated the virus, and then I had like some pretty crazy exhaustion later. Like I haven't been that tired in years. I felt like I crammed for an all-nighter like 7 nights in a row. I was just like barely able to get off the couch. So I look like really disheveled right now, if you want to picture me.
It's true, guys. It's true. I do not miss the cramming days as you have related it to.
I still get like really vivid nightmares of like, it happens maybe once every 2 or 3 months of like, oh my God, I completely forgot about this test I have tomorrow.
Oh my God.
I need to study for it. Like it's such a... it's such a meme, like to have those nightmares, but it's happens like to me all the time.
It's like the no pants stream.
Yeah, it's like so stereotypical of a nightmare. It's almost embarrassing. It's like,
dude, when I graduated, I remember continuing to have like nightmares. Like I would almost consider it a nightmare because the sheer anxiety you feel from feeling like you forgot to do an assignment. Like you forgot, or you're late for work or something, right? Like I have dreams and shit where I still work at like old jobs, or I'm still in like college courses and shit, and I still have to turn in assignments. And oh my God, I got a test due. I gotta get on Blackboard real quick and do my assignment. Oh my God, it's due in an hour.
Right? It's like getting that PTS degree, you know?
They just PTS degree. Yeah, that's what it is.
There's nothing like that relief, though, waking up and just being like, oh, my God, that wasn't real. And I never have to do that again.
It's that and I haven't had it, but I can imagine what it's like to like quit a job and then wake up the next day and be like, oh, shit, I don't have to go to work.
Oh, God, it's amazing. I've done it several times.
I mean, usually what happens in my case is that I'm moving on to another job. But the last two I've had have been like back to back, just like several years. So I haven't really had like a quick job turnover in a while.
Oh yeah, I've had a couple of them in my life where just like a job gets to the point where it's like I've worked almost 350 hours this month. It's like I'm becoming unhinged. It's like I'm gonna go home and do nothing for a week. I don't know. It's pretty great. All right. Well, so that's how we're doing. So that said, we've got a little bit to talk about today. We have ProQuest season in full swing. We have Uprising spoilers to talk about. We have the June Armory kit, classic battles themed, and we've got a little insider information on what could be happening with the Uprising market. All coming at you right after the intro.
You're listening to the Pitch Stack Podcast.
All right, and we're back. So, Matt, this weekend you attended a ProQuest, and an exceptionally competitive ProQuest with several Pro Tour competitors involved, and you top 4'd.
Hell yeah, feels good.
Hell yeah, great job. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Because this meta is really weird considering the amount of cards that haven't really changed.
Yeah, so excluding the shit show that the ProQuest that we had to attend was, where it was supposed to be starting at 10 in the morning, as far as it was scheduled on the site page where you purchase your entry, and elsewhere. Apparently, there were messages sent other places that not everyone always has equal viewing of, that it was rescheduled to 2. So I don't know what's going on with that. We were pretty somewhat livid, but we ended up going somewhere else to play for a little bit, had some lunch, so it was cool to fraternize with the homies, and then head back to the shop around 2:00 and started our ProQuest and the field was pretty small. We had about 15 players, I believe, maybe 16. And most of our, like, barring 2 or 3 guys, most of our local scene made it out, and there was a lot of variation, and there was like 2 or 3 Lexis, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
there were 3
that's
Lexis.
No surprise.
Yeah,
Ranger fans are gonna Ranger fan
the
And
Yuki
then-
simps.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Is just that the Ranger fans have been trying to make one of Lexi and or Azalea work for what feels like years now, even though
I mean,
it hasn't been years.
It's working.
Yeah, Yuki
it really is.
Yuki gave them hope. She did it.
Ranger players are the kind of Magic play. Like, if they were to play Magic, they would be the type of players to play like the Dirtly decks, where like they move pieces all over the board and tap cards sideways, and then untap them again, and then grab cards from the graveyard and then play it. Deal 3 damage to you. Go to the graveyard, flash it back, Lava Dart, go to the exile, mill a card, do a thing. Like several step players.
I feel like this happens all the time, especially if you're a Magic judge. So I know very few people listening to this can relate to it, but I know you can, Matt. There's this thing that happens if you're just sitting at an LGS and you're a Magic judge, where people just approach you and they want to show you this crazy combo they figured out. They're like, oh, Doug, look at these cards. So first I play this, and then I draw this, and then I do this, and then these 3 work together, which does this if I can tutor for this card. And then you're just like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like,
I'm a judge and I still do that. I walk up to the level 2 judge that certified me, and I'm like, hey, check out this combo. And he just shakes his head at me and like, what are you doing to these people? I'm like, but it's so much fun.
But you're right, though. Ranger does feel like that. And I feel innately that is the problem with Ranger, is every single card in that deck is so dependent on 2 or 3 other cards happening that I feel like that's the weakness of the deck, right? Is that there's no single card within Ranger that feels like powerful on its own, or like none of the hero abilities or weapons.
It requires it requires the correct like percentages of deck, it's not construction the word I'm looking for, but even draws or like hands that you're gonna have, right? Ratios, ratios exactly. of the cards you need to fuse, arrows as well, and just resources too, because you need to put cards into your arsenal. So like the deck requires a large amount of arrows so that you don't whiff on draw effects like Artivore and 3 of a kind. I mean, we can get into a Ranger theory for a while here, but the simple part of it is that you need a lot of arrows, more than like 30. And you need a lot of ways to trick your opponents in blocking, frostbite hit effects, rain razors, those type of things. And unfortunately, you have only that to rely on, the amount of damage you push, because other than that, a deck like Starvo is just going to crush you.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how. I think I've heard that the Lexi deck plays well into Starvo, but I feel like if Starvo just gets one good turn on you, like if you can't frostbite them on the turn where they're going to fuse you, you just die. Like if they oak and hold you, like you don't have really much of a turn. I mean, you know what? Now I say that now, and I want to correct myself, because I feel like actually the play is to load up your arsenal.
So that it's immune to oak and roll.
Right, yeah. So, but the thing is, it still turns your turn off because you're pitching to do that, and you load up with like 2 cards, and then you have to discard anyways. So, like, you turn your entire turn off, and then you do get another chance at it again. If you don't get like fused again, you get another shot with some cards in hand to send some arrows out. But that's still like a turn to like a 2-turn like buying time. Like. I don't know. Yeah, it seems risky, but I've seen Lexis have some success in doing that, especially the Yuki at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Yuki's list, or at least the one that she used at a ProQuest this last weekend, so maybe it's not necessarily her Pro Tour list. There seem to be roughly 12 arrows that shoot for 0. So I think that's kind of an okay way to shoot back. It seems like all the other ones shoot for 1. You're going to be playing Tunic.
Yeah, no arrows. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Oh, no, just 25% of your life total, plus your resources isn't great.
Correct. and most of the arrows are all either 4 power or 5 power attacks.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I don't know. Lexi's got a good field for her, in my opinion. She does lose to certain matchups like Prism, but for the most part, I think she's got good matchups. So my Pro Tour experience, my ProQuest, sorry, I played Viserai,
Nice.
my pet
That's
deck,
unusual.
and well, yeah, I was a little surprised because I felt down on Viserai, and I wasn't having a lot of success, and I was trying to I was just trying to break new ground, moving into certain directions because without Skeleton, the deck feels a little weird. So I was trying to be like sort of a pathfinder in the meta, figuring out what Viserai's role is now. I was trying to go the disruption route, and it had moderate success. Mostly because sometimes I would draw like the classic like aggro hand, and it would just be good enough to push in like 25 damage on one turn. But that's not always the case, and it wasn't consistent enough. But I did run into a new deck list, and I decided to just play it straight out. I did, of course, have to include Arknight Shard because so long as I live and draw breath, I'm always going to run Arknight Shard in my Viserai deck, and no one can convince me it's not the correct play. Because every single time I have it, I don't really care that it's in my hand because I'm usually not blocking anyways. And generating 1 or 2 rune chance, depending if I've played a Morgid tied out just for pitching a card, is like absolutely disgusting. So, yeah. But I actually played into just a field of tier 1 decks, like essentially. My round one was Prism, actually. Yeah, my round 1 was Prism, and I won that matchup. It's pretty tough, but I still won it. And it was against a friend. I mean, a lot of people here at the ProQuest are going to be friends. You know, we're all very familiar.
Yeah, but, it's a pretty close knit scene down here.
Yeah, there were a few new people I hadn't seen before, or I hadn't seen in a while. There's actually a couple of guys who drove down from Orlando and who were there at 10 a.m. They were kind of bummed about that. Yeah, and they were like, "We have to drive home super freaking late." Luckily, they one of the other guys I was driving fell out in the 5th to 8th place, so they got to get a head start driving home. But yeah, I played against a Miami guy in round 2 on Starvo, and I had actually play tested against him earlier that day while we were waiting for the ProQuest to start. I want to play. And I won that matchup as well, surprisingly, because I feel like I have a terrible matchup against Starvo. But, you know, it just sometimes decks can brick, you know, and sometimes you don't always make the right action. But I think he played really well.
Yeah.
And then I played it against Jacob Kissel from Microsoft.
Yeah, what deck was Jake on? Was he on Prism?
Yeah, he was on Prism.
That makes sense. He's been testing Prism a lot lately.
Yeah, and he hit me with that old Razzle Dazzle Phantasmaclasm while I have the 6 power card in hand.
I'm running him too. I love that card.
It's good. It's really good. And I was kind of just like, sure, take it. But I will say that I had a really good start in that game. Was feeling good on hitting double Tome of the Arknight successfully. So that was pretty sweet. That was a strong turn. I think at the end of that turn, the life totals were about like at I don't remember, like 15-point life difference, I think. I don't know, but I won that one too. But then I had to face Jonathan.
Yeah,
Jonathan
Owens of Pro Tour New Jersey 23rd place fame.
Yes, correct. And he got me with Starvo. But we play test so much, dude. And I feel like I've gotten only a little bit better against playing against Starvo. And I feel like he has like all the Viserai play testing he needs.
Yeah, right. I feel like every time I see John doing really well, I just remember all the times in playtesting that I like got there with Prism against them. I was like, oh, if only. And then I just remember that he smashed my face in the other 75% of the times. So that's that's a hell of a gauntlet. And so something I want to point out, right, is so in your Prism matchup, right, this deck currently, the way it's built, only has 6 poppers, right? You've got the 3 amplifies and you've got the 3 runic reclamations. Did you feel like 6 was enough?
Yeah. I'm usually not really keen on blocking, to be honest.
That's fair.
But if I have it and I see the opportunity to have a good 3-card hand, like a good turn with 3 cards, I'll just pop it, right? Because they're gonna have to use the resource to, because they more than likely blocked something on my turn, right? If I threatened a Mavrian, they probably went, okay, pitch for Arcane, block a card, boots, right? And then they kept like a 2-carder with an Arsenal or something. And if they pitched to attack me with a 1-cost like Herald or something, I could block that, make them pay for it, and then all they have now for the turn are their auras, which I'm not terribly scared of. Depending on what the situation is, hopefully I've been taking care of the auras correctly, or ignoring them if I'm super ahead. But that was the case essentially in that moment that I blocked one of his attacks in that turn. But it's not always like necessary to pop their heralds.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm sorry, one more thing, and it's also depending on like it also depends on what their soul situation is. And how much resource they have available to them. So like if they already have a really full soul, like if I'm not worried about the damage, I'm not worried about the on hit, right? Because they're not running Vestige anymore. Or Tome, so I don't care like about any like necessities from those triggers or things like that. If they've already been able to if I've already leaked some damage and they've had a soul from like soul shields or just like, I don't know, large attacks I just didn't feel like blocking at the time, then I may not feel like blocking any of those. But yeah, it's definitely a situational sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the other thing I want to ask you about this deck list, right, is obviously the unorthodox inclusion here is the Tome of the Arknight.
Oh yeah.
So do you feel like
I hate that card?
Well, that answers the question. So I was gonna ask, like, do you feel like that incremental card advantage that you get kind of helps you with more of a go wide strategy and to see a few more cards like you would have before Skeletor was banned? Like, obviously Skeletor's there for the one huge turn, but
you know, it's funny. The thing that I miss the most about Skeletor is the 2-block.
that's I mean, reasonable.
Honestly, it's that feels like a lie, but it's only because the replacements that we have now aren't that bad. Like, I don't feel sometimes like I'm missing, like, I can't have degenerate, like, really like one-off turns where like I do like 6 attacks or something because Skeletor was that good. But you still get to go really wide with other cards like Tunic or the Ironweave, because the Ironweave provides you with 2 resources, and that could mean like a meet and greet and a Rosetta, or it can mean a Rattle Bones followed by, you know, a swarming while you have one floating after playing another attack. You know, like there's a lot that goes on with the number 2 in this deck, and it means either 2 1s or a Rattle Bones or a 1 and a Rosetta, you know, a 1 cost and a Rosetta.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Or a Sonata for X's 1, which then can extend your turn. So there's definitely a lot of utility in that equipment, but the problem is that it doesn't block for 2. So the one time you really need a block, when you have it, it's not there for you.
Yeah, it seems like getting around that second Herald of Erudition would be like one of the places it hurts the most.
Correct. You can't always rely on Skullcap because you are the aggressor.
Yeah.
And in that matchup, you're not worried about the counter on Skeletor. And Guardian against mostly against an Elemental Guardian, you're always worried about the exposed if they're running that, you know, which at this point in my meta, I've already convinced that everyone's running it. So if I was already playing Skeletor, I wouldn't be blocking with it unless I was ready to use it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you sent me your list. I think it's pretty cool. I'm actually probably going to put it together and try it out.
And look, I don't want to take full credit for the list, because if it was my list, I'd be telling you
run with it.
how much I love it, and it's my credit. But Jun Ho is the guy.
Rodriguez, signature Viscerai.
Dude. No, Jun Ho is the guy who took Viscerai to day 2 at Pro Tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's actually a Cal. He's actually I think he's a NorCal guy. Carlos's buddy. And that's where I got the list from. Yeah.
Cool.
It's really good. Something about 9 Mavrians, blues, and trills are good. 9 trills, 9 Mavrians. Somehow it's good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 card hands are good.
Now, we talked about Ranger players. Now, there's one other type of player that I feel like is an archetype in the Flesh and Blood world. Did you run into any Kanos this weekend?
You know what? There was the threat of there possibly being a Kano this weekend, but there wasn't.
It's the threat.
No, it's actually odd. As far as the data that Fab TCG has, according to them, there was a very low showing of Kano.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the overall metagame indicates that Kano was a 1.3% in a pool of everything else.
Wow.
What? Which is like crazy. Like, really, like, even if you can acknowledge that Kano only had a great showing in the Pro Tour because nobody respected Arcane, I don't think that stops people from like going full simp mode and just being like, I am now an Aether boy. I'm buying Stormstriders and going to ProQuest with a Alexander Vor list or a Sasha, I don't know how to pronounce his name list, you know?
Yeah, I feel personally
I'm really so
I bought Stormstriders.
No, I think it's still the right call because we have Icelander, right? And I still think Kano's strong. It's just about practicing your AB 3-4 matchups. Like, you don't need to practice your AB 1-2 matchups, right? Like, that's all bread and butter. Like, you got it or you don't got it. The real skill comes down to practicing your AB 3-4 matches, because those are the toughest games to take. Yeah. How does Levia have a stronger showing than Kano? It's crazy. I'm still shocked by it, even though I know, like, you know, I'm shocked that people came to that conclusion. That many people came to that conclusion. But I don't know.
It's kind of weird. So I was thinking about this, and one thing that I'm seeing over and over again, and I don't know if it's necessarily right, although if I'm being honest, it kind of feels right here. Everybody I know that has decided that they are now a wizard, that they are going to Hogwarts, that they are all about that whiz life, they are all trying to buy an Eye of Ophidia right now. And
that's kind of funny.
Maybe that people just feel like they're uncomfortable running the deck without Eye of Ophidia. Like, obviously, it's kind of interesting, right? Because a lot of these legendaries aren't that powerful. And I've been thinking about this all week because I really wanted to bring it up and have a discussion about it. But Eye of Ophidia specifically almost feels like it crosses that threshold into like Magic the Gathering Power 9 territory.
Sort of. Yeah. I see it, but what the difference with the Fables is that, like, the game is built on like attacking, like trading blows and blocking, and the fact that it doesn't block can make a massive difference. And not just that, but in the Kano deck in particular, the fact that it doesn't do anything when you rip it off the top on Kano's ability really essentially, like, it makes it out of the question for a lot of players. I can see both arguments, right, for playing it and against playing it. I'm personally for playing it because flashy cards have strong abilities, like Arcanite Shard. But I think there's a reasonable. You're already playing Kano, right? Yeah. This is like the gamble deck, other than like rolling dice every single turn with Rhinar, but this is like the gamble deck, right? You came here and decided to run no block equipment and 30 life so that you can nuke somebody from orbit, right? I don't think you should be that concerned with running a single out of 60 cards whiff card. There are a ton of whiff cards in that deck already. Even if you can play them, like one resource for 1 damage or 2 damage is like nothing. You got to run the blues anyways, right? At least it does do damage, which is great when you have an Aether Wildfire turn. But for a lot of people, that's still a whiff. Like for players like that need it in the pinch moment where they're trying to win the game, that's still a whiff. So I think the Eye of Ophidia provides an insane amount of value for like a minor but game costing, advantage. Disadvantage rather, if you're considering the downside.
So this is interesting, right? And I want to know what you think about this, because I kind of went through the same process when thinking about Eye of Ophidia, where initially I thought it was super overpowered. Then I thought about the downsides of hitting it with Kano. So basically you get to pitch for 3, and when you do, you opt 2. So the effects are combined. However, I feel like running a second Potion of Deja Vu is better, in my opinion.
It could be. I mean, and some decks do. Like, that's the thing. Like, the thing is that pot can be played off the top if you hit it, but it also doesn't block either. So I don't know. I understand the argument, and I get it if you want to maximize the efficiency, right? Like,
that's what Kano's all about. It's
tuning the deck to the
numbers deck,
crunching the numbers perfectly. But I do also understand the idea, the principle behind going like balls to the wall and being like, I'm going to run this card if it kills me or it wins me games. Like, I understand that mentality, and it really is a strategic decision to do that, because you're leveraging your ability to block and your ability to have a playable card off the top of your deck every turn for the chance to essentially search the top 2 cards of your deck for whatever you want whenever you activate Kano's ability, when you have that card. So, which is like an immensely powerful effect, so much so you don't run a Skull Cap, and you run a card that blocks for nothing and does that effect once.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh. So in my mind, I think I can't argue either way. I can't say someone's wrong for running it or not running it. It's a personal choice.
Huh. Right on.
That's just how I value that card. Other Fabled are different cases in different decks.
Yeah,
like they're very different arguments in different decks. But for Kano particularly, Eye of Ophidia is the most playable one.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Especially like Kano ability opt 2 is pretty disgusting.
Oh, for sure. And even at even at Pro Tour, I'm pretty sure they were running the Eye of Ophidia, if I'm not mistaken, right? Pretty sure that was pitched on camp.
Both Alexander Vor and Sasha Markovich, they both were running Eye of Ophidia, where Sasha Markovich was running 1 Potion of Deja Vu, Alexander Vor was running 2. They tested those decks together, so the little differences in their deck lists are actually
right, and it's probably their personal preference, right? Like someone might have felt more comfortable with another pot in their deck, or where somebody else was like more like, I just need 1. But yeah, that's what I like about this game, is that like with the sheer compared to Magic, right, where like there's very few cards in the card pool for people to play with, and there are still minute differences between deck lists that still make the decks very different in some ways than others. Yeah, sideboards make a huge difference too. And of course, certain matchups and the way you see your meta can influence those decisions to sideboard certain cards in or out. Like playing Shock Charmers in Bravo, star of the show.
Yeah, that makes sense, which is that is Jonathan's signature card at the moment, it appears.
Yeah, I mean, he killed me with it in ProQuest.
Damn.
So I was dead anyways, but I totally missed that. he had a Starvo fused and sent a dominated attack. And I was like, yeah, I can live if I block with my equipment and this card in hand. I've got like 1 life left. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then he goes, pitch, shock charge. I'm like, okay, yeah, you got it. Never mind.
Oof. Yeah.
I still made top 4 though. I still got to get top 8. I played against the Starvo player again, the other one. And I won that match again. And then I played against Lexi. And that was an insanely close game. That game was so close. It came down to the wire. 1-1. Like literally 1-1. I just had to draw the right hand. And that was it. I just couldn't though. And then I was getting pressured every single turn with arrows. And eventually they drew the Art of War for the instant speed +1 after I have full block.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I feel like that's both decks kind of go wide, and Lexi can kind of turtle a little bit more against Viserai. So I actually, there's probably not enough data, but I wonder what the actual percentage is on Lexi versus Viserai. Like, did you feel like either deck was favored?
It honestly depended how we play. In my opinion, that in this one specific game, like without generalizing the matchup, in this one particular game, I think it came down to how both players played and whether or not like one of us misplayed one place or another. Because I felt like I had an opportunity to like if I rewound time and played a turn differently, sequenced it differently, like one attack before the other, I could have changed the way that the Lexi player what's the word? Assessed the game state, right?
That's fair.
Because I'd presented a card off of a reveal effect, and I didn't play it immediately. I played another card at first. So they had the information what was in my hand, but I did it because I wanted to see if they would block a red Mauve attack. Because if they didn't and they were greedy, I could have punished them for it. But the thing is, I hadn't considered that they would think that too, and just totally decide, here's my new horizons and here's this card. So I mean, it still got us really close, and it ended up just being about who drew the right cards and whether the ranger player bricked, because I was on the back foot for like the last 5 turns of the game, blocking every attack.
Damn.
So it was very close, but he got it. And then Prism ended up taking the win. Colby.
Huh. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's good to see. I mean, like, obviously that Lexi list is a force to be reckoned with, taking it all the way to the finals. Now, you know what's interesting, Matt, is hearing you recap this ProQuest, right? And there's a certain hero that we haven't heard about, and that is the current boogeyman of the meta, and that's Chain. Was Chain there at all?
Yes. So Shane actually was represented there by, I think, 1 or 2 players, but he made top 8. He actually played against Colby in the 5 to 8, the quarterfinals, right? Nice. Colby won that one, and it was because he forced the Shane made a little bit of a misplay, but of course he didn't have that kind of information to know that an ALS was waiting. But you know, you're playing against Ranger, you're playing against Prism, you haven't seen one all game. I mean, you may be safe to assume that you could expect one to come. They had 7 shackles, and they had, I think, like, I don't know, from what Colby was telling me, they had 5 Blood Debt or something, 7 like that, and they played a Minnowism out of their arsenal, and then he was like, "Okay, ALS." And that was that was the
that was great.
That was bad.
Yeah.
So the Shane player ended up taking 7 damage on his Blood Debt on that turn. Forced to block out the next turn. Hit like, I don't know what amount of Blood Debt on the next turn. Took like 14 or like 10 or something. I don't know. Took like 15 damage to his own effects. So it was pretty bad. But you know, I think that was just unfortunate timing on his part, and probably like just bad luck, and probably just maybe poor assessment of the game state. You know, I don't know. It's hard to know that that's coming, but if you play a game long enough, you've seen like 0 Arclight Sentinels come out all game. Card in Arsenal. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes it's worth playing around that kind of effect because it's not too difficult for Shane to do so. Like at least he has an out if it's not there, he's got creepers. So, but yeah, Shane was there. He did not make it past quarterfinals, and then the rest we've just discussed.
Huh. So yeah, that sounds like this meta is pretty cool right now. It seems to be wide open, which is not something I think a lot of people were expecting. I think a lot of people were expecting a rock, paper, scissors meta for the next month, at least.
Briar also, by the way, I forgot to mention, was in our top 8. So it was two Prisms, a Shane, Lexi, Briar, Viscerai, and 2 Starvos.
Huh. These decks are all over the place. That's fascinating to me. And even like Reinar won a ProQuest this week, right?
Yes, he did.
Oh, God bless.
Yeah, man. Reinar pulling through in Shailin. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I sure tried.
Huh. Well,
over in good Taiwan.
That's fascinating. That's really cool because I don't know. I really like Reinar. I think he's really cool, and it's nice to see him do well, even if it like requires him to get insanely lucky for that to happen.
Well, I don't know. It might have had something to do with his tech in his deck.
Oh yeah,
he ran Heart of Findle. I'm sure that helped a lot, gaining a little life on the back foot all game.
I actually haven't seen this list
until the Starvos kind of ran out of gas. But it's funny. Funny enough, there are only 2 Starvos in that top 8. And there are 2 Katsus in that top 8, which is crazy. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He played against Lexi in the finals.
Second?
Yeah.
2 Starvos. The Katsus are insane. I got to look at those deck lists.
And then you have Bonehead Barrier in his deck list, which is kind of funny. I don't know if I've ever seen a Reinar top 8 or even get first with a Bonehead Barrier in their deck.
Yeah, right?
But I'm sure that's tech for some kind of like Starvo or like Lexi kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually makes a lot of sense as like a on hit effect. Yeah, that's interesting. Huh.
No club though, which I think could have been a mistake.
No club, huh? Just running claws? I feel like I've been seeing that a lot recently.
Just claws?
Yeah.
I don't agree. I think club's valuable. There's a lot of value in a 2-cost 4-tack. 4 is a really special number.
4 is a special number. It's one of the first 4.
It is.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Even in the first 5, believe it or not.
Top 10. The
top 10 numbers. Number 1.
I kind of like. Obviously, I don't have a hard to find all, but I kind of want to put this. I have a hard to find together. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. That's the future.
There you go.
So,
yeah, I don't know, man. The Reinar deck list is pretty sweet.
Yeah. So something happened this weekend. I didn't take a judge call, but I came across a judge call.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So a judge call made it to Twitter because no one was sure what to do in this situation. And what I thought was really interesting is even amongst judges, nobody knew what to do. And what had happened was this weekend at a ProQuest, the top 8 semifinals ended in a stalemate between Bolton and Lexi, where both decks were exhausted and neither one could kill the other.
Huh.
And everyone was searching far and wide for a fix. I actually found the fix on the official judge Discord. I guess this had happened 2 weeks ago. And Matt, this is fascinating. Just off the top of your head, what do you think the fix would be?
But could you describe the situation?
Okay, so it's a top 8 match.
Yeah.
Both decks have no cards left. Both heroes are completely exhausted.
Do they have cards in hand?
Nobody has cards in hand.
How does
and
this
neither
happen?
player can kill the other player.
Lexi versus who?
Bolton.
What the?
Life totals are Bolton at 8, Lexi at 1.
Oh my god. So Bolton had his go off turn. Lexi was able to block it, and then that's why he's at higher life total. And then she ran out of cards, and he
ran out of cards.
Ran out of cards before she ran out of life.
Attack with Raiden.
Huh. So it had to have been like a situation where they were both playing on like minimal card blocks and attacks to have to be in a spot where like no one has any pitch for anything. I mean, okay, so I guess Lexi could be.
That's where the game's at.
Lexi could be stuck with no arrows and only pitch, right? She has no weapon.
Right.
No real weapon.
I believe the Lexi player was down to 2 cards in deck, but no arrows. And the Bolton player had no cards at all.
I don't want to say cards because that's irrelevant. Cards in deck, right? I don't think that's
no cards in deck or cards in hand for Bolton. So no ability to pitch.
I want to say that it came down to life totals.
Okay.
Am I wrong? I think I'm wrong. But
so here's what the fix was.
Sure.
They start a new game from scratch.
No fucking way.
That is from LSS in the Judge Discord when this happened 2 weeks ago. So I was able to chime in like a good little Boy Scout judge and just be like, the proper fix is you restart the game from scratch. So
how did you, what were you met with?
So
other than just...
So this was on, we've got a couple friends that are part of this. This was on the official Team Kitchen Fable Twitter page. And I guess they were playing at this. So I was immediately met with a like, and props to whoever was judging this came up with the same resolution. I guess they must have looked through the Judge Discord and found the official resolution.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, can you imagine though?
That's odd, man.
All the top 8 rounds are finished. You're waiting on this long ass Bolton Lexi match to finish.
And they gotta play again.
You've been sitting there, and it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna start from scratch.
That's terrible, dude. I would just delete myself. It's just like I don't want to be in this game anymore. Just give first place to one of those 2.
You just order a pizza at that point, right?
Oh my god.
So fascinating.
Jeez.
And thank God for Discord's search function, where you can just kind of like go in anything.
That's helpful a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I do like how it was like complicated enough a situation that they tagged James White in the post just in case. I mean, like, if you're gonna,
Did he just comment bloody hell, mate?
It's just like it looks like you came together for a great game. I don't know. I'm sorry. That was an Australian accent anyway.
I wasn't very New Zealand of you.
Yeah, there were too many vowels.
But Reinhardt being in a first place was really interesting. And other than like weird decks making top 8, Azalea made a top 8 on May 14th, 2022 in Germany.
I mean,
I don't know if I can trust this source.
Even a broken clock is right once every 2 years.
But like, here's the thing. I don't know how much they're covering, how much data they're able to get on ProQuest Season 2 metagame on Fab TCG, because they published this data. And they don't have that recorded here. They don't have an Azalea top 8 recorded on week 1 metagame data, which is weird because it started on the 14th.
Yeah,
right?
I wonder if they're just still processing them from some areas, or some places were just kind of like submitting slowly,
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know how to explain it, but this is a legit ProQuest that happened. Louis Toefels, maybe it was an 8-man ProQuest, and that's why he's in the top 8. But he brought Azalea, and the list is not what I would consider standard, But of course,
Yeah.
what's a standard Azalea deck, right? Everyone's trying to pathfind here, right? Everyone's
Surprising amount
breaking
of-
new ground.
Ooh, he's running. Oh my goodness, Matt.
Yeah. What?
The real tech behind this deck and the
E-strike?
thing that cannot go. There's no New Horizon.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't
They're
play New
running
Horizon in
cross-wrap.
Azalea at all.
They're running cross wrap.
Yeah, you don't run. You can't run. That's the thing. That's how you know that you don't play Azalea, is that you can't play New
Of course I
Horizon
don't
in
play
Azalea. He just confidently, of course I don't play New Azalea.
I've never played Ranger in my life.
So
Anything.
yeah, it actually is funny, but New Horizon is actually terrible in Azalea. So I'll tell you why. The effect that Skullbone Cross Wraps has is once per turn action, turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. Right? Opt one, go again. If you could have 2 helmets, that'd be amazing, right? Because you just turn one face up. Oh, look, here's another arsenal zone. But just not having the opting effect on Skullbone to turn a card face up is sucks, because you can't opt for Azalea's ability to check the top.
That makes sense.
And additionally, you only have an extra arsenal zone when you have a face-up card in your arsenal. Now you're saying maybe to yourself that, Dreadbore and Death Dealer put an arrow card into my arsenal, right? Face up, right? So now it gives me an extra arsenal zone. Sure, that works for Dreadbore.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
With Death Dealer, it says if you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put an arrow card from your hand into your arsenal. So New Horizons is only useful with Dreadbore. And on top of that, any reload effect from like Pathing Helix or from Molten Shot, they say reload, which the text on reload is literally put a card from your hand into your... Put a card from your hand face down to your arsenal if you have no cards in your arsenal.
Okay.
So once you have a card in your arsenal, you can't reload at all, even if you have an extra arsenal zone.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's helpful if you're playing some sort of like control-your deck, like control-your version, so you can have like an arrow and like a react in your arsenal or something like that. But I still don't see it being good in the actually like attacking deck, and this is an attacking deck for the most part.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate because
Maybe I'll spend $10 and build this list.
Yeah. Well, you need 30 for the Skullbone Cross Wraps. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
And funny enough, with as bad as people say Ranger is, like her cards are actually expensive for some reason. Like
I have the 3 of a kinds.
The Remorseless 3 of a kind. Those are all pretty expensive. Even like Battering Bolts, like $4 a piece. I think $3 a piece.
See, it's the Ranger cult, man.
I'm sure Razor Reflexes have seen a little spike recently, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked, but I bet it has.
You mean Rain Razors, rather?
What did I say?
Razor Reflex.
Oh. Rain Razors, my bad. It doesn't help there's 2 cards in the deck named Razor something.
There's too many razors, not enough arrows. Interesting.
Oh, you know what I just thought of? We should start a little, on a little side note, but you know how Magic judges do like dagger check?
Yeah.
We should keep Rain Razors in our wallets.
Ooh, yeah, we got to find a card.
For the Razor check.
Some sort of judge card. Yeah. It might be Rain Razor.
I don't think there's a dagger card in the game. Is there a dagger card in Flesh and Blood?
There's only the whatever it is. It's from Crucible.
Oh, we can just run Zephyr Needle. Yeah.
Yeah, Zephyr Needle.
I mean, Kodachi technically counts. It's a dagger.
It does, but it's a sword. Like we know it's a sword. It's legally a dagger. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Needle. It's definitely got to be needle.
Right? That's 100% a sword. That is.
It's actually proverbially, like the needle actually is perfect because you're needling them, like you're daggering them, But on top of that, it has to be defended by a card with toughness greater than its power. So their knowledge has to be greater than the question you present to them in order for it to break.
Oh, yeah, that's actually phenomenal.
This is so flavorful. I love it.
Oh,
Hold on, I got a foil Zephyr needle somewhere here.
Yeah, now we need to order 1,000 of them.
And just give them out at the first Flesh and Blood conference.
Yeah.
Imagine that's the judge promo.
Just foil Zephyr needle. I mean, might as well, right? All right, so we got there's a big release coming out this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the dual decks, the classic battles, the greatest battle of all time, the first widely available lore book that is full color and included with this set. We have classic battles, Rhinar versus Dorinthia. Matt, you told me you were so excited for this you could hardly sleep.
I think maybe that is a version of the story that probably didn't occur. But, I'm not unexcited for it. I think it's cool. I'm just like a little underwhelmed, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I appreciate what it's doing for the game, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the product. I just don't think it's for me. And which is fine. It's perfectly fine, honestly. I want this product to exist, and I may even want to own it at some point, but I'm not going to volunteer to sit down and play this. I would teach somebody the game with this. As far we haven't seen deck lists, so of course I may be speaking too soon. There might be some really sweet tech in here, but a lot of it seems pretty basic from what we see now, right? Definitely an effect we need to teach new players that you can play your Toughen Up on my Command and Conquer. I don't get it. Why can't I? Then you have to explain, card text.
Okay, so I'm really excited for this dual deck for one reason, and that's I have taught so many people how to play Flesh and Blood. It's upwards of 20 people at this point, and I am Matt, I am so sick of playing the Ira Welcome decks.
I don't think I would ever want to teach somebody how to play with Ira decks. I would want to teach them with starter Blitz decks.
There's just so many times where I just there's so many. Oh God, I can't even. There's so many times where I've had to explain everything in that deck that I'm over it. I'm over the Ira Welcome decks, and I think this is a beautiful replacement for it. And I usually keep 2 of them on me. I'm going to change it to these.
I think that there are good. This is a great starting point for new players of the game. But sorry. I think that the Ira Welcome decks aren't terrible. I don't think they'll be obsoleted. I think they're good for people who don't necessarily have a background in trading card games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me.
And if you do have at least some kind of Magic experience, I've had success teaching Magic players this game using the starter Blitz decks of the first 4 heroes, right? So there are official deck lists online.
Oh, yeah,
you can throw them together.
Yeah.
They're really cheap. They're like commoner decks essentially with a couple rares. And they do a fantastic job of displaying the effects in the game and the uniqueness of every hero without dumbing everything down to just saying power 3 attack, go again. And here's a weapon for 1, without simplifying it so far down, where every turn feels the same. And then your opponent's playing the same thing. But this, I think, is maybe the 1.5 of that, right? Where you're playing with actually strong cards with, a variable of effects, right? It seems, as far as from what we've seen in terms of what's been spoiled so far, even the weapon like Dawnblade Resplendent and some of the other cards that we've seen, the effects seem basic enough, but also intricate enough to keep people's attention, right? Because that's another thing. A lot of players that I've seen join the game is that sometimes it depends on the person, right? Because some people need to have their handheld and shown like the very basics of the game, right? First off. But then some people, like, once they've gone to that, like, they're immediately going to pick like their favorite hero or the thing that looks the coolest, and they're going to gravitate towards that, and they're going to be like, I need to play this, and this is all I want to play. Please stop showing me how to play with like basic blitz decks, right?
Yeah.
Basic battle decks. Because so, like, you know, as an example, like, there's a guy locally who learned how to play the game, and then he was immediately like, he picked up all the mechanics and everything, and he's like, I'm playing Kano. And we were like, don't do that. He's like, I don't care. I really love the idea of this deck, and this is 100% like this. I want to play this. This makes me excited to play the game, and that's where I realized, I'm like, that's the most important part, right? Because he'll learn it if he really wants to play it. Like, he will learn it. Like, I have no doubt about that, right? It's not impossible to do if you're new to the game. It just requires a lot of patience, a lot of getting your ass kicked at an armory, but
absolutely,
you will eventually learn the game. So I don't always think that a starter product that's bare bones is the best way to teach somebody and get them into the game. But sometimes it's okay, which is why I like the idea that they're presenting these as a new tier of like introduction to the game, like a new way, right, to teach people the game. Because the Ira decks, I don't think they're being replaced, and I don't think that I don't think that this replaces the experience of just handing somebody a more bare bones deck and teaching them with that, you know, or building them a basic deck with their favorite looking hero. Like, I like the way she looks, or this guy's ability sounds cool. You know, I think that all of these are really good ways to enter into the game.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like, because I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but I built a handful of commoner decks for this same purpose. Just completely out of my disdain for playing the Ira Welcome deck. So yeah, I think you're right though. That is the key to it, is getting excited about a hero. And I found that most of the people that I taught how to play they were curious about the game, where they were just like, well, what's this all about? More than they were like, oh, I can't wait to play Flesh and Blood.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what ended up happening with me using Ira Welcome decks to teach people. So yeah, but I think you're right though. You have to identify with a hero to want to play the game. Like, before I ever knew how to play or wanted to pick up a card, I was just like, oh, Prism looks dope. Gold's my favorite color.
Exactly, dude. That's amazing, because that's a thing that, like, that's what pretty much like ties, you know, most trading card players together, is that like a shared love for like the art, for the effects, for the heroes, right? Like, as soon as I saw, like, the second I laid my eyes on Viserai, I knew for a fact, I was like, I don't even know what his effects do. I already know that that's my main. Like, I just see him, I'm like, he could be the worst hero in the game. He doesn't look like he is, but that's already my favorite hero. And immediately I was like, buy a box of Arcane Rising. I will say that this may not be like totally relevant, but like, when I first like shelled out the money for the Arcane Rising box and it was in my hand, I hadn't played a single game of Flesh and Blood, but I think I was probably like the most excited I have ever been in like the last like couple months when I first like touched that box, because I'm like, this is something new, right? Yeah, and I was so freaking excited. Like, at that point I'd already committed to being a player of this game. Like, you know, I can remember the feeling vividly last year where I was like, this feels right. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I got to think about that. What was the first box I opened? Because I had just been buying like random boosters here and there at my LGS. And I miraculously got a Phantasmal Footsteps doing that. Like, in the first
wasn't
10
it a
boosters
Monarch
never
then,
bought.
right?
Yeah, so I was buying Monarch, but I'm trying to think of like the first actual like sealed box I bought. And I think it was either Wraith or Monarch First Edition, because those were the two boxes that I bought to start with. And I don't know. That's interesting. God, I've got no memory of that. That's unfortunate. It was probably Monarch, though, because I was just buying a lot of Monarch at the time.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think from what you've told me, I think it was Monarch, because you said like, oh yeah, it's first edition, you got a good price on it. And
yeah,
you opened it up and you got
for
like
$150 in December.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That wasn't bad.
That's great. Still $150.
Yeah, right.
But you know, the dual deck, actually, they have some really cool cards in them, and we have a few pictures here of some spoilers. I don't know if I'd call them leaks, or they're not official, but
or taken with a smartphone.
Yeah, I mean,
made recently.
It's actually clear though. The pictures are not blurry from like a video screenshot. The Dawnblade Resplendent actually says it's a 2-power 1 attack, and the second time you attack with Dawnblade each turn, it gets +1 until end of turn. It doesn't get a counter.
Yeah,
which is a little weak.
It's nerfed a little.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the Rhinar weapon is also nerfed, right? If I'm correct. I haven't seen it as clearly, but I believe it's not as good as the club.
We thought when we read it, because it was blurry, we thought it read one-handed weapon, pay 2, attack for 4. And if that's what it said, dear God. Like,
oh, yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, because you can run a lantern with it.
Huh.
But no, it's not what it says. I wish it was actually, it seemed like it was a 2-handed. Right. But it's so small. It's like a little club. I don't get it. Why would they just not do the other club, the token weapon club?
I guess it's more just having these decks balanced against each other, right? That has to be it.
Probably.
Interesting.
And then Dorinthia has some basic like attack reactions here and warrior like buff stuff, like 1 cost your next warrior, your next weapon attack gets +3, go again. I don't know if there's anything like that already. Just better.
Huh.
Then there are, what's interestingly enough, some generic reactions, defense and attack reactions. And what's unique about this is that we have attack reactions that reference swords that aren't named Razor Reflex.
Exactly. And I found this, you mentioned this to me before we started recording, and it looks like you are ready for the Talishar meta.
Oh, no.
Nebula Blade, who's heard of it? Talishar meta.
Stop. Don't tell them already. Dang it. Keep it low profile. Nebula Blade coming at you for 8 to an armory near you soon.
Yeah, right. That's gross. They're sitting there playing around real cards.
Right? Jeez. Attack reactions in Runeblade? What are you doing? Yeah, there's like a weak Razor's Reflex. It's like 1 cost red. A sword attack gets +3. But then there's some really cool, unique stuff that we've got. Like a yellow pitch action that costs 0. Your next sword attack this turn gains go again. And this is generic, mind you, just to remind you there. That means you can play it in anything. You can play it in Viscera. You can play it in any Runeblade. Who else uses a sword? You can play it in I don't know who uses a sword. Cavdane. Talishar. It all comes back to Talishar.
It all comes back to Talishar. Yeah, I guess it really, because now that we've decided that Kodachi is not a sword for all legal reasons.
Autumn's Edge.
Oh, yeah.
It already has go again, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Visit the Blacksmith is a cool one. 0 cost blue pitch. Next sword attack gets +1. Go again.
Yeah.
Blade Flash, instant speed. Reaction. Go again on a sword. For 1 blue pitch. And then you mentioned this, and I didn't even realize it until you pointed it out. It looks like they're going to be changing defense reactions and how they appear in the game.
Yeah, which I think is a really good thing when it comes to teaching the game. I think they, for something that has such a unique effect and can only be used at certain times, it needed to stand out differently. So that way you can just, because now they're putting in that watermark in the text box. So now when you're playing a new player, you can just be like, if there's a watermark in the text box, now you can defend with it from your armory. Because I feel like, arsenal rather. And I feel like that's the hardest thing to explain to new players.
Yeah, I think I definitely have had the most confusion explaining this to players when it comes to playing cards out of Arsenal. Because the way I usually try to explain it, I don't know how how the wording that you use, but I usually say something along the lines of you may not pitch or it's like you cannot pitch anything out of your arsenal. You can only play cards, and you cannot block out of your arsenal. However, defense reactions can be played from arsenal, even if they are going to defend.
Huh.
Right. But I also have explaining it that way has also caused a confusion in which one of my friends thought that he could just play a defense reaction for its effect and not block with it, or not necessarily that it has to block with it. So I guess there's a little confusion in explaining it that way. But I do like now that it has a little reminder text, this toughen up one that has the little shield in the middle that sort of gives the player a better indication of how to play it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the hardest thing to explain to new players. Like really anything with the arsenal, just because the arsenal is so foreign. It's not really like any other card game where you just get to have a secret card just for you. I don't know.
Well, additionally, something that is meta changing, totally changes the definition of Flesh and Blood. Titanium bauble.
Yes. The blue bauble of our dreams. The ball of steel. The titanium bauble.
And this bauble blocks for
cool.
3.
It does. And it's fascinating. I wonder, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I wonder if it is actually going to function the same way as the cracked bauble, or if you will be limited to to 2 or 3 copies in your deck.
In limited formats, I believe it will not be legal unless they replace the cracked bauble in draft with the titanium bauble. Now, here's something I may have already proposed beforehand, whether it was on our on the podcast or off record. I like the idea of obsoleting cracked baubles and replacing them with these.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a fan. I don't know what the implications are, but I'm a fan of these over cracked baubles. So, like, if you're playing a limited format and you didn't have enough cards to fill your deck, you could place these.
Interesting.
But what does that mean? Okay, so now the more I think about it, the more I'm like more torn about it, right? So let's say like maybe could you legally just play a bunch of cracked baubles in your deck if you wanted to?
I mean,
I don't know.
right?
You can. Well, I think the ruling is that if you actually want to talk about like official sanction, like format stuff, I think the ruling is that you only fill up cracked baubles up to the difference of non-playable cards you don't have, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like if you couldn't just be like, I'm going to run, 30 cracked baubles because I want to, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that. So my only concern would be like, if you could do that, what would stop somebody from just saying, I'm going to run 30 titanium baubles, have perfect blocks every turn, and then just swing my weapon every turn?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like having to resort to a bauble should kind of be a punishment,
Yeah. That's why I'm like not convinced that these will replace them in booster packs, but I'm more of like questioning what if this would replace the limited format, like sort of like shoe in for not having enough cards.
It'd be so much easier to live like the weird bauble dream.
Yeah.
With and accidentally break something with it.
I mean, it does block for 3. This is cool. I really do like that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Huh. I don't know. I'm curious to see that of everything they've spoiled, I feel like I'm most interested in these. Just because of the implications they could end up having. And because it's kind of a weird include, you know what I mean? If it doesn't do anything else, like if it doesn't have any effect on the greater game at large.
Yeah.
So totally. I don't know. Go figure.
Well,
yeah, I'm excited for those.
The Brute deck, actually, I think there's maybe one or two cards here that might be good enough for some classic constructed play, or whatever blitz, whatever flavor you like of format. But I believe that this card pack call is actually not terrible at all.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there are so in Magic, right? As a good translation, like I like effects, right? That can trigger when you don't have to play the card, right? Like Dredge, for example, right? Like I get a benefit because I chose not to play this card and I blocked with it, or I discarded it to an effect, or like Madness, right? Where like I discarded it and now I get a bonus, like Beast Within, right? Or Massacre, that sort of thing. And Beast and Brute's all about that. So when you see Pack Call and its effect, when you defend with Pack Call, immediately I was drawn when I read that, and I was like, reveal the top card of your deck. If it has 6 or more power, put it on top of your deck. Otherwise, put it on the bottom.
yeah. I think that card's incredibly good. There's not enough filtering in Brute right now,
and it blocks for 3.
Yeah, right. And
the thing is, like, you're essentially playing an effect, like even if it's a minute effect, you're getting to play an effect just for blocking.
Yeah.
Like you're getting rewarded for blocking here, and it's to fix the top card of your deck, so you don't just draw like red pummel when you really don't want to, or like your whiff cards, like you're dodging them, and they'll just go to the bottom of your deck.
Yeah. I do agree. Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's really cool because there are some other effects that happen, like that say draw a card and then discard a card, and you want to make sure the top's a 6 power. When you're like, oh, I really don't hope I draw a card that's not 6 power or that's a non-attack action, and now my opponent has like a 1 in 3 chance to whiff me. You know what I mean? Like that's always feels bad. What's funny? That actually happened on on the stream like clip that Jacob shared on the chat the other day when he was playing Brute. He played Wild Ride and he drew into a barraging, shuffled his hand, and then of course the opponent picked the non-attack action and he didn't get go again. But it was a 3-card hand, and if he had blocked with a Pack Call on that turn before, he would have been able to see, oh, that's a barraging. I need to put that to the bottom. Yeah. So it's actually kind of funny, I think Pack Call is great. And I think, I actually think it's even better in Levia, because Levia wants those 6 powers so badly. Like she's like digging for them, and she wants to make sure she has the 6 powers. So she turns her Blood Debt off. She doesn't want the sharks come knocking at her door.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Maybe this does see play, although the issue I have with these cards seeing play is that, the the fact you need to buy 3 of these.
I'm willing to bet that that's not a problem, because you got to remember that these are Brute cards.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, Brute mains, but it's true.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you got to play cheap decks, okay? Be happy. Yeah. Be happy you're not a Runeblade or a Guardian right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I am excited for the Armory kit that comes with these. That playmat,
for sure, dude.
Phenomenal. We're getting our replacement for Heart and Cross Strap, apparently, in the Diet Tunic is what I've been calling it. But I like
Diet Tunic. That's a good way to describe it.
It's Diet Tunic.
It's sweeping the nation. I would not compare it to Tunic, because it's not an instant effect.
That's true.
So just remember that, kiddos. You're gonna want that resource floating.
Your own Actione phase.
Yep, and you've got to have it floating already if you want to use it to react or do something at instant speed. Because if you don't got an action point, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I miss about Bloodseed Skeleton. It wasn't instant.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's banned now. It was too good. It was too good for this world.
Good. Now I've got an action that I've got an action that I got to make sure I'm at an action point for.
Well, so you know what's interesting, Matt? Next week's episode, hopefully we'll know what's in these decks other than these like 6 shady pictures we've seen because they come out on Friday. But you know what's interesting? This is going to be next week will be our last episode without Uprising spoilers.
You keep doing this thing, and it's funny. I don't even know if you're doing it, but you keep doing this thing. It's funny. No, this is great. It's great content because I feel like it's like a running joke you don't even know about, and it drives me crazy. Not crazy, but it's humorous to me because you say it's our last episode. Pause. And then you say something else after that. This has happened a lot. I don't know if you realize this. And I'm like, oh my God, it's our last episode. What?
It's like in Futurama. It's his Calculon. He's the master of the dramatic pause. And that's I don't know. I don't do it on purpose. I'm so
no. It's so funny because it's like it makes it sound like it's our last episode for like half of a moment, and I'm like, wait, are you quitting the podcast?
No, yeah, that's like we sold to Big Diet Tunic.
We got bought out by Arsenal Pass. They saw the potential.
They saw the potential. We'll see. Well, everybody is undergoing interviews to see who stays on.
Or Rudy bought us out.
Yeah, right. It's like
if only shit. Rudy buy us out, I'd sell.
Well, speaking of Rudy, apparently he talked to Channel Fireball and James White, and the word on the street is that Uprising is going to be a gauged release.
Really?
So no one's sitting on pallets of it. So basically, I guess the idea, and this is really interesting, that LSS want to set it up so that the product's availability level constantly matches the demand for it so that it's selling at $99.99. Which I think is fascinating. So we don't run into a situation where suddenly something that we thought was thought was super rare is just it turns out that there's warehouses full of it in Nevada. And here we are we all went through that with Monarch. We saw what it did to the investment community, which is already taking a hit due to inflation. And it's good to see that that's not going to happen with Uprising, because even though I do think that the real appeal of Flesh and Blood and the fundamental thing about it that's so great is the gameplay, is the communities attached to it. What's really interesting is a lot of people found out about this game, heard about it, and showed up because of the investor hype. And so it's nice to hear that the investors are not going to get boned again, because as long as that investor hype keeps happening, you're going to be exposing more people to the game, which is what we want.
I agree I agree to an extent, but I do think that the game for sure needs people to like be interested in it and in multiple like aspects, not just playing it, but I think the most important thing is definitely going to be the players. All right. And that's ultimately just what's going to, the game's going to live and die by its players. Right. So if the game's good, it doesn't matter how many people like find it, investable or not, like it's still going to be valid, know? And I think that that's still shown with like other card games that have seen maybe not the same level of success that Flesh and Blood has seen, at least the same rate of success, right? Because some of these have had a longer time to build up, like Force of Will, when they screwed over their market, they still remain to be a playable game, and then they ended up picking back up and continuing from there. But I don't think Flesh and Blood will make that level of error. So I think that there will still be a level of market like speculation, still be a level of investment, still be a level of some degree of like, holding of product and older collectible valuable stuff, to where the game can still be supported by both that and the players.
I think that makes sense. I mean, you need the investment like the investment factor needs to be there with any trading card game. That's just, that's the nature of trading card games. That's what separates them from limited card games,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm
And
not disagreeing with that at all. You know?
We just got to help them. We got to help those people. Apparently.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, it's funny that I don't know. It's funny that there were so many people split on like the whole like investor like player thing. You know what I mean? Like, when the real solution was to make both sides happy. You know what I mean? With
Absolutely.
Uprising getting rid of unlimited and first edition, with them controlling the print runs of everything, I think it's definitely going to be very exciting once we see Uprising release.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm glad to see that LSS is kind of like they realize that they did a I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they messed up, and
Noopsie.
So yeah, they did noopsie, and they're doing something to make it right. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Uprising. So
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that about does it for today's episode. I know Matt and I are taking a road trip this weekend, going to a Magic the Gathering Judge conference gathering, and it's going to be quite cool.
Hell yeah!
We'll brainstorm some cool ideas.
Maybe we'll play a little Flesh and Blood. Maybe we may have an opportunity to teach some people Flesh and Blood. We'll see.
Maybe we'll get stuck in traffic and have to play mental Flesh and Blood.
We'll see that happen.
Do you remember Mental Magic that people would play? Where you would just like imagine a 7-card hand?
Lightning Bolt.
All right. It's like counterspell.
I'm casting Lightning Bolt right now.
Tapping 2 blue, counterspell.
Respond Lightning Bolt.
It's like, well, there's only one left in his deck. So
that's actually those 2.
Oh yeah, that's true. All right, well, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for listening to episode 10. We hit double digits, and we'll see you all next week.
Join us for episode 11.
Yeah, right. 2 ones.
See ya.